in Great Bend, Kansas, and found a permanent home in Indianapolis in 1961. It's a place that has seen the young lions of the sport mature into seasoned veterans. This week, the event has attracted 150,000 fans and has a posted purse in excess of $1.5 million. As good a racer as you think you are, you have not arrived until you have won here at Indy. John Force is the reigning Winston Funny Car champion, but has never won here. The same is true for Pro Stock champ Darrell Alderman. Kenny Bernstein has won here in Funny Car, but never in Top Fuel. So today, the quest for the most coveted single victory of the season begins again. There is nothing quite like it. It is the National Hot Rod Association's US Nationals.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joel Myers, and welcome to Indianapolis Raceway Park as we get together today for the oldest and by far the richest race in drag racing history. It's the US Nationals. It's the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Kentucky Derby all wrapped up in one. And if you were to ask the competitors in today's race which one they would like to win the most in the season-long series, without a doubt, it'd be the US Nationals. Every year, great stories and interesting developments surrounding this race. This year, it's no exception as we check in with Steve Evans.
Joel, everyone who follows drag racing, even remotely, knows that a funny car like this one is not as fast as a top fuel dragster. They are the kings of the quarter mile. Well, 99% of the time, that's true. There's a big exception here at the U.S. Nationals and the talk of the pits. That's the funny car driven by Jim White. Yesterday, the final round of the Big Bud Shootout, Jim White won $50,000 over John Force, a great elapsed time of 5:16. The speed, 288 miles per hour. The second time this week in the car ran 288. A new national record and faster than any top fuel dragster here forever at the U.S. Nationals. The bad news maybe though, a few minutes ago in round number 2 of competition, it was Jim White against Al Hoffman. Jim White won it at 5.21 seconds, but smoke out of the car. They're repairing the engine right now, and Jim White, everyone is wondering, have you heard this combination?
No, the combination's fine. We've got plenty of parts, and we're just getting ready for the semifinals.
Your crew chief, Wes Cerny, said you burned a cylinder head. Everybody thinks the power is in the heads.
Yeah, but that's not the whole secret. There's a lot more to this combination than just the cylinder heads, but the surprise is we have more cylinder heads.
All right, see you in the round of 4.
Thank you, Steve.
For the big story on Top Fuel, let's go to Big Daddy Don Garlitz.
Well, Steve, as qualifying got underway here at the U.S. Nationals, it was Joe Amato who immediately took command. He started off with a 495 low qualifier, took that engine out, put another engine in for the next day, and ran a 499. No other car was able to dip into the 4s. But when the smoke cleared from round 1, it was Eddie Hill with a brilliant 496. He stepped right up to the head of the class, and it looks like we've got a challenger. Now, as we head into the second round, Eddie, I have noticed that as this race has progressed, every run you have stepped this car up just a little bit, being ever so conservative and careful. Are you going to be able to continue with that type of performance?
It looks like we've still got a little left in the car. It looks pretty safe from smoking the tires at every point on the track, really. So if we play our cards right and don't do something dumb, maybe there's a shot for us here.
Well, there you have it. But I've got to remind you that Eddie Hill doesn't face Joe Amato to the final. He's on the other side of the ladder. And in between Amato and that are some pretty tough competitors.
And it's time right now to begin competition with the second round of Top Fuel. And what better way to start out than the two best teams in Top Fuel drag racing right now. Kenny Bernstein, the Budweiser King car over in the far lane. In the near lane is Joe Amato. Joe Amato has won the last 16 out of 17 rounds of competition. There is his crew chief, Tim Richards. He would have a perfect score had not Bernstein beat him with a quicker reaction time just 2 weeks ago in Brainerd, Minnesota.
And it's a much bigger race for Kenny Bernstein because he is trailing Joe Amato going into the race by 1,600 points, Steve, in the season-long battle.
Bernstein has won 5 national events this year. He qualified number rated at 506 and beat Tommy Johnson Jr. earlier. Amato qualified number 1 at 495, and he booted Scott Coletta out of competition in round number 1. Amato has been on a tear, winning 3 of the last 4 NHRA national events, and that's really where his points advantage has come from. There's Kenny Bernstein as they stage these 5,000 horsepower machines.
Well, Steve, Kenny Bernstein has not run well at this event so far, while Amato has been a standout. It's now or never.
Side by side. Look at Bernstein. He has upset Joe Amato by a full car length, the 5:05 elapsed time to a losing 5.10. He was off the mark first as well. Don?
You have proved that anything can happen in drag racing. Nobody thought anybody could beat Joe Amato.
Yeah, well, it looked that way, Don, but, you know, we had to step it up a little bit, but we didn't show it to them all yet, just enough to win the turkey.
Dale Armstrong got very excited when the crew chief for Kenny Bernstein, but something definitely went wrong with Joe Amato. Not characteristic of what we've seen from him in this race. We continue with round two of the top fuels. You're looking at a veteran. That's Dick LaHaye, who has the lane choice, and LaHaye matching up with the Mongoose, Tom McEwen.
Now, neither of these cars ran real well in round one. McEwen smoked his tires getting by Cruz Pedregon.
Let's go down to the far end of the racetrack now and check in with Steve Evans.
Joe, you and Kenny are great friends, but fierce competitors. That hurt.
Well, you know, Steve, we were running good. You know, I messed up. I overstaged. I had to back up, and it threw my concentration off a little bit. And, you know, he's going to be right there. And the car fell off to a 510 a little bit. But, you know, I got to get all the credit over here for not being aggressive on the line, I guess. You know, I was aggressive, but I just wasn't, you know, didn't get it the light. What can I say?
Thanks, Joe.
Well, after a 495 and a 5 flat in round one, there was something more wrong with that car than just the driver.
So Dick LaHaye, who beat Jim Head in round number one, getting ready for his next match with Tom the Mongoose McEwen. And earlier, Steve Evans had an opportunity to talk with the owner of Tom's car.
It's rare for a big leaguer to have a day off this time of the year, but here is Jack Clark of the Boston Red Sox. And Jack, you got to be a bit concerned about your car going into round two after what you saw in round one.
Well, that's true, and it didn't really run very good all weekend in qualifying, and there's a little glitch or a little problem that they haven't been able to figure out. Everything seems to be perfect, but they can't seem to quite find it. But after this last round, they think they've got it now. They found a little problem, and the computer was giving them the wrong information, and they've got that straightened out. And if with the right information with Larry Meyer, they'll get it working. They'll be a lot stronger the second round.
A lot of smart on this Jack Clark team.
Well, as they get ready for round number two, Big Daddy, it appears now that something's wrong with Dick LaHaye's car.
Yes, it looks like a little oil has dripped out of the engine. It's on the drag strip. Not very much oil. Perhaps the crewman will wipe it up and they'll let him run. He doesn't seem to be able to get it stopped. Nope, they're not going to be able to fix it. It's going to be a single.
What another lucky break for Tom McEwen. Let's recall in round number one, he smoked the tires all the way down the racetrack. There's still some question as to whether the car was ready to meet a driver the caliber of LaHaye, who had qualified number 2 at the U.S. Nationals. McEwen has the track all to himself, and he shuts the car off. It shook violently coming off the starting line. Rather than abuse the car, he shuts it off, much to the disappointment, really, of Jack Clark. They were hoping for something far better than that. Dick LaHaye, utter disappointment.
This is NBC's Sports World, and today it's brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Goodyear, the unanimous choice of all professional NHRA world champions, from Top Fuel to Pro Stock Motorcycle. By Budweiser, the king of beers, with that clean, crisp, cold taste, nothing beats a Bud. And by Fram Oil Filters. Fram, you can pay a little now or a lot later.
Welcome back once again to the U.S. Nationals. We're looking into the pit area of one of the hottest rookies right now, the hottest rookie in the funny car division, who's won 2 national events this year, Del Worsham. They're getting ready for the big matchup with John Force, but back to round 2 in the top fuel, Steve.
And Joel, both of these drivers have been struggling lately. Frank Hawley in this beautiful blue car from Miami, Florida, owned by Darrell Gwynn, a past U.S. Nationals champion himself, up against Don the Snake Prudhomme. Now, Prudhomme qualified number 5 at a 5:03. That's his best time so far of the event. He beat Laurie Johns in round 1. Hawley qualified much better, number 4 at a 5:02, and he dropped Gene Snow in the original stanza. But neither of these drivers, Don Garlitz, has been able to get much past round 1 the last 3 events.
They sure haven't, Stephen. Hawley has had a problem in that the car's been running pretty good, but he's been a little late on the lights.
Well, that could be driver or the clutch setup on the vehicle, or a combination of both. It's Hawley near lane, Prudhomme in the far lane. Round 2, top fuel, the U.S. Nationals. Prudhomme loses traction. Prudhomme shuts it off. Frank Hawley with a very nice 5.03 elapsed time and a huge speed of 284.99 miles per hour. Let's have another look.
Well, this is a classic example of what happens when you come into a round and your performance is off. Prudhomme was not up to the 502 from Holly's previous round, and the crew just gave it too much clutch.
So we get ready for the next matchup in round 2, and there's Fuzzy Carter, the crew chief for Eddie Hill. They had that great time in round 1. Another example of a veteran, Steve, that has never won here.
But he's got his best ever chance today. Witness that 496, and he's up against a rookie in Top Fuel. 4-time winner in the alcohol funny car class, Pat Austin. He and his family purchased the entire racing assets of Gary Ormsby. He is debuting in that car this weekend and has qualified and looked very good, Don Garlitz.
Well, Pat Austin has certainly got his hands full with Eddie Hill. He's never looked better. Now, I noticed that Pat Austin's burnout's a little better than it was. When he got here, he could hardly make a burnout with this car. Top Fuel is the most difficult learning how to do that particular procedure. The engine wants to rev up too high as 8,000 or 9,000 RPM, and that's very destructive.
Well, it's something, Don, you learn with just more and more seat time. Practice makes perfect.
That's exactly right, Steve.
So the veteran against the rookie, Eddie Hill, who qualified 3rd with a 502, going up against Pat Austin, who runs in his first national event. And even with the early success, it's a difficult weekend for the entire crew.
On Wednesday, just as the U.S. Nationals was getting underway, the drag racing world learned of the death from cancer of Top Fuel champion Gary Ormsby. Since the early 80s, when Gary and crew chief Lee Beard first began to make their mark in the Top Fuel ranks, Gary has been respected and admired by racers and fans alike. The 1989 season, despite 2 devastating crashes, was the pinnacle of Gary's racing career. He won the Winston Top Fuel Championship, culminating a season-long battle with Joe Amato. A very private person, Gary confided the facts of his illness only to longtime girlfriend Susie Hoobs, whose quiet strength was there for Gary until the end. Drag racing has lost a champion, the team has lost a leader, and we have lost a friend.
None of us can relate to the pressure that Pat Austin is undergoing right now. And let's not forget about the pressure on the other side of the racetrack from Eddie Hill.
Oh, absolutely. Pat Austin, in all his years of sportsman drag racing, has never faced anything like this for a multitude of reasons. Austin in the far lane, the green and white car. Everybody knows the bright yellow car from Texas of Eddie Hill, one of the most popular drivers on the circuit. Austin with a brilliant start. It's Austin at half track and at the finish line. Pat Austin's 505 defeats Eddie Hill's quicker 498. Don?
Well, Lee, I'll tell you, considering the trauma that you've been through, your performance is outstanding.
Well, Don, as you know, it's very emotional times for me here. I'm trying to do the best job I can. It's very, very difficult. You have no idea how this has affected me, and I have a good team, and they're doing most of the work and allowing me to make the minor decisions that are making our car perform today.
We're all with you, Lee.
Thank you.
Pat Austin achieved a reaction time off the starting line that few veterans are capable of. Have a look, Don Garlitz.
I think what happened here, Eddie Hill went to the line with that 496 and was so overconfident. In the other lane, Pat Austin, the rookie, he knew he had to make a move early if he was going to beat Eddie Hill, and he made one of the best reaction times I have ever seen. Hill was trying to catch him at the end, as you can see, but it wasn't near enough.
So a great hole shot by Pat Austin, and we now have our semifinal pairings with Tom McEwen, who has not had a real good run so far today, going up against the rookie Pat Austin. And in the second semi, Kenny Bernstein against Frank Hawley. And in that one, Hawley will have the lane choice. Steve?
Well, it still says Gary Ormsby on the windshield of this car, and Pat Austin, you were picking up in the reaction time department where Gary left off. Your 505 beat his 498.
That's drag racing Castrol style. Gary did a great job, and if I can do as good a job as him, we're going to win a lot of races.
They have declared war on Top Fuel.
And war, of course, the initials for the racing team, Walt Austin Racing. Now it's to the Pro Stocks round 2, Vince Curry against Paul Raveshi.
A Pro Stock is basically a very highly modified late model Detroit stock car. 2,350 pounds, 500 cubic inch engines, 4 and 5 speed trans, carburetors with gasoline. In the number 16 qualified spot was this guy, Paul Raveshi, who upset Warren Johnson in round 1. It helped that Johnson broke. Vince Curry, well, he had a legitimate upset. He qualified number 9 and blew away Frank Iaconio, one of the strong names from New Jersey, in round number 1. Now, the staging process, very important for these cars, Don Garlitz.
Yes, because they put the engine at such a high RPM to leave, it's very important that that front wheel be in exactly the right position, or they'll red light.
A real challenge to drive one of these cars, to keep it straight and to make the gear changes within about 3/4 of a second of each other. Listen to the RPM. Rabeshi leaves too soon. A red light, a foul start, call it what you will, it means automatic disqualification. The winner, Vince Curry, just shuts it off, probably in shock over his tremendous success in the early going at the U.S. Nationals.
Be right back as we continue from Indianapolis. Welcome back once again to Indianapolis Raceway Park. I'm Joel Myers, along with Steve Evans and Big Daddy Don Garlitz, as we continue with the U.S. Nationals. A great crowd on hand on a beautiful weekend. And they're working right now in the pit area of Kenny Bernstein as they get ready for their semifinal matchup in the top fuel division with Frank Hawley. But first, it's the Pro Stock division, round number 2. Scott Jeffreyon and Bruce Allen.
A pair of General Motors products going head-to-head here. Scott Jeffreyon runs on the Warren Johnson team. We mentioned earlier Warren Johnson, the low qualifier. He was dropped in the opening round, so all of their hopes now ride with Jeffreyon. Bruce Allen, the yellow car from Arlington, Texas, they have had their best outing in a long, long time. In fact, Allen qualified number 3 at a 7:32 and beat Ricky Smith. Jeffreyon qualified only 11th at a 7:36, but has since picked up on that performance, as Butch Leal found out in round number 1 when Jeffreyon sent him home. Again, they're pre-staged. That's the top yellow lights as they inch forward to complete the staging process. 1,320 feet away from the finish line. We've got a race. Bruce Allen is slowing. He had a tremendous lead over very late Scott Jeffreyon. Jeffreyon, tremendous elapsed time, 7:31, 190 miles per hour. But he better sharpen up his reaction times in the round to come, or he'll be out of here.
And here is Mark Powick as he gets ready for his race against Larry Morgan, a veteran who has won this race before, Steve, back in '89.
He has, and he was runner-up here as well to Jerry Ekman, last year's champion. I call Morgan Mr. Happy because in 90% of the winning interviews I've ever done with him, he always starts off with, "I'm so happy." Well, let's hope he has a chance to say that again for Oldsmobile's sake. Well, as I look again, actually, these are both Oldsmobile cars, so that division of General Motors can't lose this one. There is no tougher pro category in drag racing just to qualify for than pro stock. Larry Morgan made the field in the number 4 position at 7:33 and beat Jerry Haas with a brand new car in round number 1. Mark Powick qualified number 5 at 7:34, so they're only one position apart. If Desire could win drag races, Mark Powick would win them all. He is just so hungry and he's come so close.
But you know, Larry Morgan ran a 7:27 in round 1 and Powick only had a 7:31. That's light years in pro stock racing, and you're only as good as your last run in drag racing.
Absolutely. You can throw out those qualifying numbers. They mean nothing. It's another day, another track, a different set of atmospheric conditions. You see Morgan moving in. Now Powick last to stage. Good start by both drivers. Good drag race. But it is Morgan in the far lane at a 7:29. Nice consistency. 189 miles per hour to Mark Powick, 7:35. A car length and a little bit more.
We move back to the pit area now of Jim White's car as he's getting ready for his semifinal matchup with Mark Oswald. Well, they've got the car running, so obviously they've repaired it, but do they have the parts that are comparable to what they were using earlier to put together those incredible times, as he had a 5:21 in round 2. Let's check in now with Steve Evans once again.
Well, Larry Morgan is Mr. Happy, but this might make him ecstatic. The hottest part of the day, a 7:29.
I'm pretty happy about that. I'm happy for my sponsors and everybody here. I think it's my race, buddy.
You've won it before.
So true to form, Larry Morgan is happy. And now one of the most interesting confrontations in the pro stock division. Bob Glidden, who has won this race 10 times, up against Darrell Alderman.
If you could book these two in for a 3 out of 5 match race, you could fill any local drag strip in the United States. That's how popular these two guys in pro stock are. Nobody will argue. You can call Bob Glidden Mr. Pro Stock in his Ford Probe. He qualified number 7. Slow for him at 7:35. Beat defending champ Ekman in round 1. Alderman qualified number 2. No surprise. 7:30. He beat Jerry Yeoman in round number 1. And you're on board the Dodge Daytona with Darrell Alderman, the defending Winston Pro Stock champion. And he has such a points lead. No one is betting against him, repeating in 1991. Near lane is the Dodge, far lane the Ford Pro, Glidden Alderman, maybe the two best in pro stock racing. Watch his right hand. One of the few drivers still with a 4-speed transmission, but Alderman pulls it off over Glidden. 730 to a 738, 189 miles per hour to 188 miles per hour. The winning difference, 0.09 of a second.
So the semifinals are set now in the pro stock division as well. Scott Jeffreyon going up against Darrell Alderman. Alderman will have the lane choice in that matchup. And the second pairing, it'll be Vince Curry against Larry Morgan. And Morgan will have the option there in lane choice. Back to the pit area, John Force's car being pushed out, getting ready for his semifinal race against Del Worsham. We will be watching that when we return to Indianapolis Raceway Park. Welcome back once again to Indianapolis. Tom the Mongoose McEwen getting ready for his semifinal. Even though he really hasn't made a good run so far today, he'll have his hands full with the rookie, Pat Austin, in the Top Fuel semis. Right now, it's the semis of the funny cars, though. Jim White against Mark Oswald, and Steve will find out a lot more possibly about Jim White's car.
Well, along with Pat Austin, certainly Jim White has been the big story of the U.S. Nationals. And let's not underestimate Mark Oswald in that red and white car. They have consistently been in the low to mid 530s, and those are competitive elapsed times. But I want to say something here. I don't care what Jim White said in the open about we got a lot of parts, everything's just fine. I watched the cylinder heads they took off the car. They hid them in the trailer. The ones they put on for this round, any spectator could have taken a picture of. So they are not operating with the same speed secrets, Don Garlits.
But Steve, they wanted Mark Oswald to think they were so that he would lean on, and he did. He gave it too much clutch. He smoked the tires. The Hawaiian takes a win, but something goes wrong with the Hawaiian car.
No question. 578, 191. That's slow for that team, and they take no prisoners. They run all out all the time.
In the other semifinal pairing, John Force and Del Worsham. In the 4 previous meetings between these two teams, even though Worsham has won 2 national events this year, Force has taken all 4 over Del.
And John Force makes his traditional long half-track smoky burnout. But look, there's Del Worsham completely out in front of Force. He's making a statement to him. He's saying, look, here I am. Are you ready?
Well, we saw at the tail end of Jim White's win that they had problems at the end of that race. Let's find out more now down the road with Steve.
For years, we talked about the lack of racing luck for Jim White. Well, buddy, you just got a big dose of it.
Big dose of it that time. Something broke in the drive line on this car.
I heard the motor come way up.
Yeah, it's probably the rear end, maybe the reverser, something in the reverser, but we've got parts. We'll fix it.
Okay. What about the engine? Can you go back to a combination you had before?
Yeah, the engine was just fine.
Boy, that Jim White's playing those cards close to his chest. Just exactly what I'd be doing.
Del Worsham ready for the semifinal against John Force. Those mind games we saw just a little bit earlier.
And you know, there is a Rookie of the Year award at the end of the season. And if Del Worsham doesn't win it, I'll be absolutely shocked. 21 years of age, unsponsored, the family car from Southern California, up against, and you're riding with, the biggest name in funny car racing the past 2 years, John Brute Force. He doesn't see Worsham, and there's a reason for that. Worsham has shut it off. Force, a nice, solid, safe 538 at 272 miles per hour.
Let's take another look, and let's see if we can see what happened to Del Worsham. We see that they take a very nice, even start. Both cars move almost identically. And then as they move off the starting line, we see that Del Worsham starts to have a little bit of trouble. He smokes the tires, lifts, gets back on it, and the wheels go up. That's the end of the deal. Force is the winner.
So the pairing is set now for the funny car final. The 2 top runners going head-to-head. Jim White against John Force. And let's join Steve now with John.
John, was that you pedaling the throttle or Del Worsham? It was hard to tell from down here.
There was some trouble out there. How'd she run?
538.
538. She slowed down, obviously. Track's going away. And I told Coyle when he come up to the car, she was too grill. I said, you pumped her up because of rolling, and we don't need it now. And I told him, I was looking at her, we're driving. He's looking at me. I said, we're driving it, because she wouldn't hold it. She went out and she pedaled her a little bit, and she flew down through there, just what we planned on.
All this clutch dust on the fire suit tells us.
She was clutching. This old heap was hunting, and she was clutching and blacking, and my God, I need a brand new one.
That's kind of his trademark, you know, the dirty fire suit.
Safe to say John Force a little pumped up. But concern again for car owner Jack Clark. Can he get a good run out of his car and driver Tom McEwen in the Top Fuel semifinal against Pat Austin?
Well, not only is Jack and McEwen up against Lee Beard and the natural Pat Austin, tremendous frustration. They came in here last Thursday, fired off a 5.06 and said, take that. Now we'll go quicker and quicker and quicker. They haven't. They've gone slower and slower and slower, and the crew on that car really doesn't know why. They're searching. They're trying for any kind of a miracle that'll give them the combination to beat Pat Austin. Austin, recall, in round number 1, had one of the best reaction times Don Garlett said he had ever seen. Austin near lane. He's got the lane choice, and he's selected the right side of your screen as you look head on. Another great start by Austin. Can McEwen contend with it? No, he cannot. 5.03, 281. Remember, 400s is a perfect light. There was another 4.1. Just incredible for a rookie especially.
Well, that young man, Pat Austin, has that Top Fuel pitch just buzzing.
Man, back in the pit area for the Pro Stocks, we're looking around the car of Darrell Alderman. He has just beaten Bob Glidden to make it to the semifinals. He'll face Scott Jeffrey on. He has been a dominant force in the Pro Stocks, but let's not forget he's never won this race. Let's check in with Steve now.
Pat Austin, his debut as a Top Fuel driver, you just threw out Jack Clark's car at third base with a 5.03.
This is a story that's going to continue for one more round this fuel car, and we're going to get in the winner's circle.
Your reaction times are sensational. Everybody's talking about them. They can't even believe them.
Well, it's just like a fight. It's obvious to a boxing match. You go in there and you establish your ground rules right away, and that's to let them know that you're there for business and nothing else. So I think you like to throw the right hook and hit him on the chin and let them know that you can throw a good hook.
Well, you got him on the mat so far. One more round to go.
Rock and roll.
He's rocked and rolled his way to the finals. The next semifinal up next, Kenny Bernstein and Frank Hawley. We're in the pit area with the defending season-long champion, John Force. He gets ready for the funny car final that everybody was hoping for, going up against Jim White. Let's go to the opposite end of the track now with Steve Evans.
I believe this car just keeps running better and better, and Pat is a natural in it, apparently.
Oh, he's doing a super job. He's like the Airtron Senna of drag racing, you know. I'm awful lucky to be in this position to have such a good driver here at the U.S. Nationals.
And I think you'll even be more impressed when you see that reaction time.
Oh, we've been watching him all through qualifying and eliminations here. He's phenomenal.
The biggest difference, though, between Pat Austin and Formula One great Ayrton Senna is that Austin doesn't make $15 million a year.
We'll find out now who will face Pat Austin in the Top Fuel final. Kenny Bernstein going up against Frank Hawley. And Don, Kenny Bernstein, a very good one working the tree.
Yes, he is, and there's a lot of pressure on Bernstein because he's number 2 in the points, and he needs to go as far as he can go if he's going to catch that gap and fill it up between him and Amato. And there's Amato. He's concerned, too. He wants Bernstein out of this race right now.
Oh, he is rooting big time for Frank. Oh, you can see him right there. Come on, Hawley. Stop this man. I can feel his hot breath on the back of my neck in this points chase. Hawley, the bright blue car, owned by Darrell Gwynn. Right-hand lane, Kenny Bernstein. Oh, buddy. Oh, what a great drag race. But you see by Dale Armstrong's reaction, who won it? Kenny Bernstein with a starting line advantage. 5.07 defeats a 5.04.
Here we see Bernstein take the advantage immediately. It wasn't very much, but it was enough to overcome the better ET that the Hawley car turned. As he moved down course, Frank Hawley does try to make up the difference. He did have the quicker car, but there just wasn't enough racetrack left to do it. Bernstein gets there first.
We're down to the final now in the Top Fuels as well. Pat Austin, the rookie, going up against the wily veteran Kenny Bernstein, who's with Steve Evans right now.
Final round against Pat Austin. It will be a battle of the levers.
Yeah, it will. He's leaving awful good, too. Of course, he's got so much adrenaline going, Steve. First Top Fuel in the finals. I mean, you couldn't get him off the moon right now, I'm sure. So it's going to be tough up there. We've got to find a little performance. We're just off a taste, and we just got to keep after it. Frank and those guys did a great job.
You bet.
It's been some kind of year for Kenny Bernstein, making up those points now on Joe Amato. We move to the Pro Stock semifinal. Darrell Alderman and Scott Jeffrey on. Alderman with the experience and the lane choice.
Well, you can bet that Scott Jeffrey on sitting back in the staging lane saw Kenny Bernstein win on a hole shot. That's what he needs to do if he's to defeat the man you're riding with right now, Darrell Alderman. And Jeffrey on had a horrible reaction time in the previous round. That may have been mechanical, though. It's not always the driver's fault. Here you get a good head-on look as they stage. Let's see if they play any mind games at all. now. Both drivers accomplishing a very smooth stage. Sometimes one driver might intentionally slow down the process to look for any mental advantage he might get. Not so here. Good, clean drag racing. Well, you never saw Scott Jeffrey on, and neither did Darrell Alderman. Alderman goes to the final round with a 7:28. They have it when they need it. Jeffrey on departs at 7:36. Both run 189 miles per hour. Who will face Alderman in the final? Larry Morgan or Vince Corey?
Well, I'll take Larry Morgan because I like his confidence, which it takes to get a good reaction time, and he's got a good performance to match it.
And let's not forget, this is the biggest moment, the finest hour of the young career of Vince Corey in this Pro Stock semifinal. He is hoping to match up with Darrell Alderman, the veteran that everybody is shooting for, and right now, he's down at the end of the track with Steve Evans.
Darrell Alderman has never won the U.S. Nationals. You're one round away from accomplishing that.
Yeah, I know. The guys back at the shop, Wayne County Speed Shop, and myself would like nothing more than to win the U.S. Nationals. It'd make our year complete if we could win this race.
And points-wise, things couldn't have worked out better with Warren going out first round. You just keep amassing more and more of a cushion.
Yeah, each round you make, that's 200 points, so we'll take that.
In the final.
Thank you.
He is already there, and now will it be Morgan or Curry? And it appears right now they've got problems with the Curry car.
Oh, what a disappointment. The U.S. Nationals, the biggest race in drag racing. You're in the semifinals, and you can't make the car go. Oh, that's a terrible thing to happen.
Now, Larry Morgan does have something to beat, though, and that's Darrell Alderman's elapsed time we just saw, 7:28. If he can beat that, he will make the decision as to who runs what lane. That timer stops. No. 7:31. So the lane choice will go to Darrell Alderman.
Definite disappointment for the crew as they push off Vince Curry's car, but a positive weekend. He'll always remember the 91 U.S. Nationals. Pairing set now for the final in the Pro Stock. Alderman and Morgan. Alderman will have the lane choice. We move back to the pit area, though, and Roland Leong, the owner of Jim White's car, mixing fuel as they are working to get ready for the final in the funny car division. White going up against John Force when we return. Beautiful shot of Indianapolis Raceway Park, where they put together a new record in attendance at 150,000 over the 5-day period. And right now they're getting ready in the Pat Austin pit area. He is going to face Kenny Bernstein in the Top Fuel final. Lee Beard is right now preparing a brand new blower for that car.
Well, that's a luxury the fuel racers have. Not so in Pro Stock. And here is the final. Darrell Alderman, Larry Morgan, normally aspirated engines. That's an engineer's term for it. No supercharging and no turbocharging. But I guarantee you, both drivers right now are on full boost because this is the biggest race of the year. Morgan has won it before. He knows the feeling. Alderman never has. Oldsmobile versus Dodge. There you see the Castrol Oldsmobile. Green and white. The red and white car on the right side of your screen is a Dodge. No games being played again. Good, clean staging. It's going to be Alderman. And a great reaction time makes the margin of victory greater than it should have been. It was a 7:29 to a 7:30. Let's go down to the starting line. A jubilant crew for Darrell Alderman.
It wasn't your best run of the day, but he took a starting line advantage and he looked good.
Well, we were just able to stay good and consistent all day and keep the clutch right for him. And he just done such a phenomenal job this year that he just gets better every round.
How's your first U.S. Nationals feel?
We just love it. It's absolutely the greatest thing that's ever happened to us.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
David Hutchins, the crew chief for Darrell Alderman, and now the moment we've all been waiting for. Jim White and John Force in the funny car final.
They put the starters on these big 5,000 horsepower engines. They put a little alcohol into the injectors to get them started. Every crew member has to do his job perfect. In drag racing, you make no mistakes or you lose. A lot of tension, a lot of pressure, and this is where John Force is the best. They've won the last 3 races in a row. They perform under pressure.
But before White meets Force, let's find out about that big win for Darrell Alderman, his first at the U.S. Nationals. Steve?
You've won the Winston Championship, but still every driver dreams of winning Indy, the U.S. Nationals.
Yes, this is another dream come true, as I've been saying. This is the biggest single event any race car driver could win, and all of us wanted it real bad.
Here's a guy that wanted it real bad, wants to shake your hand, Larry Morgan.
Darrell Alderman winning the U.S. Nationals for the first time over Larry Morgan. It's been a phenomenal year for Darrell Alderman. And now after 14 races in the 18-race season-long series, Alderman way out in front as Austin Coyle is backing up John Force into position. The burnouts are complete as we get ready for the funny car final. John Force and Jim White in the dream matchup. And just before they came to the line, Steve spent some time in John Force's pit.
Even though Jim White has been running the big numbers and getting all the publicity, there's 3 members of John Force's crew who have not lost their confidence at all. His 3 daughters, Ashley, Brittany, and Courtney, 8, 5, and 3. Ashley, what do you think? Can he beat Jim White?
Yeah.
Will he have to outrun him? Can he hole shot him? What do you think?
Well, he probably will outrun him, but if he can't outrun him, he'll probably leave on the lights early.
What do you think about Daddy's chances, Brittany?
I think he will win and stuff, and sometimes he doesn't. With that one other guy, Otto Pops, because he beat him that other last time.
You are your father's daughter. Courtney, what are you going to do tonight after the races with Daddy?
Just look at him and smile at him.
Oh, that's so nice. Good luck, kids.
Little did we know that John Force had that extended crew and that kind of support team.
Talk about an inspiration to win. They're right there in the tow vehicle. John Force is hoping that Jim White doesn't have those speed secret cylinder heads back on. They've had a crew working full-time since the second round trying to get them ready again. We don't know. And they're not saying. They want John Force certainly to think they're capable of another 288-mile-an-hour blast. Beautiful start. The kids cheering Daddy on, but it's not enough. The big numbers are back for Jim White. 527, 283 miles per hour. Force losing at a 533, 272. Jubilation on the starting line. Jim White, the U.S. National Champion.
For all practical purposes, the cars leave the line dead even. Both of these drivers were up for this tremendous race. The adrenaline was flowing. As the cars start to move down course, it seems like it's going to be an even race. But the Jim White car begins to make that traditional horsepower that it has displayed all weekend long and stretches the win out to a full car length.
How does it feel to win your first ever U.S. Nationals?
God, I can't even start. What a dream. I mean, a dream. It's something that you just... when you're a kid, you just grow up thinking that it could happen, and it only happens to a couple of guys like a Don Perdome or somebody big like that.
You're big now.
What a thrill.
You turned the air conditioning on at half track. Did that distract you at all when the hatch blew off?
I knew it was going to blow off. When we made the burnouts and I stopped and I flipped it forward, it broke the hinge. And I saw it, so I backed up as quick as I could. The guys, I'd let them take a look at it and see if they needed to fix something. They just closed it like normal, and away we went.
Could it be said now that the speed secret cylinder heads that were missing in the semis were back on for the final?
That could be said.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Steve.
So in the season-long point standings, John Force still out in front. Jim White, though, has moved into second place ahead of Mike Dunn. Dunn went out in the first round of the Nationals. They are rolling out the car of Kenny Bernstein. They're getting ready for the Top Fuel Finals against Pat Austin when we come back to Indianapolis. Jim White, a totally dominant weekend as he won his first U.S. National title. The crew with good reason to celebrate. Did they ever work all weekend long? And now it's the kid against the veteran Kenny Bernstein, the kid rookie Pat Austin.
But Pat Austin has this man in his corner. Quiet, studious Lee Beard. No better crew chief in all of drag racing. The only thing Pat may not have on his side is fatigue. Because understand, throughout the day, Pat Austin has been running 2 cars. There's a shot on the pits earlier. There you see the Top Fuel dragster that he's new in. Across the way, his alcohol funny car. Now, Pat Austin, just moments ago, was in the final round of that category, up against Vinnie Bartone over in the far lane. As he had been all day, Pat was sharp on the tree and out-muscled his opponent to the far end. 6:01, 2:33. Those are great alcohol funny car times. Now, Austin crawled out of the car at the end of the racetrack. was greeted by a crew member with a golf cart, and they raced back to the starting line to get in the dragster. How difficult, Don Garlits, to go from one to the other.
Oh, Steve, you have no idea how difficult that is. I take my hat off to that young man to be able to get from a totally different reacting and driving car and then into a fuel dragster.
Understand, in the alcohol funny car, you have two... Oh, Pat Austin on the burnout has exploded the motor.
It looks like he backpedaled it. The engine was a little too high. He stepped back on it. It went lean, and he's out of the race.
Lee Beard absolutely destroyed. He had put a brand new supercharger on that engine, as Don said. Maybe a little inexperience for Pat Austin, and you can understand why. His first weekend in the car. And Pat has been very candid about how difficult it has been for him to do the burnouts in the top fuel car, especially after getting out of the alcohol car where it's so easy. His father, Walt, I think right now feeling more for Pat and Lee Beard than he does himself. But for Kenny Bernstein, well, it's a tempered elation. He wins the U.S. Nationals on a single run. You'd like to win it by an inch with the crowd screaming, but Bernstein will take it any way he can get it, especially in that he has been accumulating points round after round in his hunt to gun down Joe Amato. Kenny Bernstein, the final run of the 5-day U.S. Nationals, and Bernstein goes up in smoke. That even puts salt in the wound of a Pat Austin. Now he knows that all he had to do was stage, and almost anything would have beaten Bernstein.
Well, the crew anticipated a real good run out of the Austin car, so they pulled out all the stops. They pulled out too many.
And you'll see what the racers call banging the blower right there in the car of Pat Austin. Let's join Don now with the rookie.
The throttle response on these fuel cars are just a little more sensitive than an alcohol car, wouldn't you say?
It's incredible. It's the hardest thing about driving one of these nitro cars. And, I mean, I feel bad for the team because that was obviously driver error. I mean, it's either open or it's closed, it seems like, and I was getting a handle on it, and it just seemed like the tires hooked up a little harder than I should have. I mean, I should have maybe hit it a little harder to start or got more water in the tires or something. I don't know what's going on, but...
Well, let me tell you something. Take it from an old pro. You did one hell of a job today anyway.
Coming from you, that means a lot. Thank you.
All right, Don, and it really was an incredible weekend for Pat Austin and the entire crew, considering the emotions that were involved. Let's go to Steve now with the winner.
Kenny, I don't care how you do it. Few men can say, I've won Indy in top fuel and funny car.
I hear you, Steve. It's great. The horseshoe must be with us this weekend, I'll tell you.
You had enough bad luck this year and last year.
That's true, but you make your own. But we got a break there. Austin's car broke, and we smoked the tires going for it. And, you know, I wanted to do this one for Ormsby. I wanted to win this one for him, and I didn't know him well, but what I saw and what I knew, I liked a whole lot.
So a big weekend for Kenny Bernstein as he made a huge move in the point standings, gaining ground in second place on Joe Amato. It's been a sensational weekend at Indianapolis Raceway Park, a big one for Kenny Bernstein. For Steve Evans and Don Garlits, I'm Joel Myers. Thank you for joining us at the U.S. Nationals.
This has been NBC's Sports World, and today it was brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers, who reminds you friends know when to say when. By Craftsman Tools, only at Sears, the home of America's craftsmen. By Castrol, engineered for today's smaller cars. And by Ford Motorcraft. Get the peace of mind of doing it right with the right parts. Motorcraft quality parts.